Coming up this week on Ignition GT. Hyundai's design onslaught continues as we drive the new Creta. The rough and tough Isuzu D-Max is down in the basement. Kia plans to launch their new Sorento in SA this year. And Juliet gets behind the wheel of the VWT Rock. Hello and welcome to Ignition GT. This week's show quite obviously has a crossover theme to it, as we will be reviewing two brand spanking new cars to enter that segment. But there are notable differences between them, but we'll explain that all later on in the show. Let's say hello to our guests. I mean, last week I said, we'll see you guys quite soon, not realizing that I will see you literally the next week.
Yeah.
Not to say that I'm not happy to see old Sean Nurse and Thomas Falconer. Thomas, I see you've kept your black tea.
I have, you know.
How many black teas do you own?
I've got 7 because there's 7 days in a week, and every day I put a new black shirt on.
That makes
I'm like the Steve Jobs of the motoring world, minus the big salary.
I do like that. I do like that. Yes. And Sean?
Yeah,
I see you got a bit of bike tan going there.
Yeah, and a V-neck, you know.
On those guns.
I also only roll with a V-neck for the guns. You know?
On those brezers of yours.
On my
brezers. I like the carryover. Gentlemen. But to start us off, let's talk about the Toyota Agya.
Agya. Like Auntie Agya. Eastern European auntie.
Agya.
Like Toyota do focus groups, right?
Yes.
When they ask people, do you like this name? Do you think people said, yeah, that's a cool name. I want my car to be called an Agya.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've been like stuck on this name. We haven't even spoken about the car.
No, we haven't.
You've driven the car.
I have driven this car.
I've read about the car.
Okay.
From what I've read, they say it's quite good. But you've driven it.
I have driven it. I would say that in its segment, the A segment, it's probably the nicest to drive.
Ah, okay.
It feels sturdy. It feels well pieced together. It's quite zippy around town.
Yeah.
It's comfortable on the inside. The seats were a bit disappointing, like very low-end fabric.
Okay.
That was a bit disappointing.
But it is a budget car.
It's a budget car, you know.
Yeah. No, but that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm impressed. I look forward to actually spending some time behind the wheel. It's nice driving cars like this because in our jobs, we get to drive a lot of expensive and fancy stuff. But then when you go back to reality and drive something like this, it is quite refreshing because that is a proper consumer car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Next up on the list though, guess what guys? It's another crossover because 2021, obviously, the crossover train is not going to die out anytime soon. So hey, let's see what we've got for you guys. In a world where traditional sedans and hatchbacks are fading out and crossovers and SUVs are everywhere, making a statement is the most important thing to stand out. That's what Hyundai have done with their new Creta, as its bold styling certainly catches the eye. So a few weeks ago, we drove the all-new Audi Q3 Sportback. And we went on and on about the whole segment of crossovers and defining them and which cars fall into which place. Well, today, we're unfortunately here to confuse you even more because we've got another crossover for you to look at. And this is the all-new Hyundai Creta. But this crossover falls below the likes of the new Audi Q3 Sportback and instead competes in the ever-popular segment that has the likes of the VWT Cross. So, in order to compete in that segment, Hyundai have really had to up their ante. Now, so much so that I've actually had to sit down to go through the list. If you look at the front, the car looks completely different. It's almost as if the designers were told to go back to the drawing board, scrunch up the piece of paper of the original car and start afresh. And I actually like the route they've taken, but the car does look quite drastic. It's quite polarizing. Some people like it and others don't. Personally, I'm quite a fan, but moving on to the rear, I think that is the most polarizing bit. The car for me is where it starts looking a little bit strange, but once the eye gets used to it, again, it looks good. The overall presence of the vehicle has completely changed as well. The car is 20 millimeters longer, but it's also 10 millimeters lower, which does make the car look that much more aggressive. Some distinctive design features are the lights. They look like 3 individual pieces, and what they've done in the front, they've tried to mimic in the back. And for me, that adds that unusual flair to the car. If you look very quickly, you might even think that this is a Citroen because it's so quirky. So in our opinion, the new Creta has definitely got the looks to be right up there with the competition. But that's not really the most important part of the car, because this is where you're going to spend most of your time in this vehicle. Earlier on, we referenced a bit of Citroen. These seats again give me such nice French flair. I wonder if the people at Hyundai didn't poach one of the designers from Citroen or Peugeot. But I do have one criticism for this dashboard, and it's right here by the aircon section. It's quite strange for me because you would expect it to be like a piano black finish, and you can actually see the color difference between this panel and the rest of the vehicle's panels. It's quite a strange thing for me, but besides that, that's a very small little niggle on my side. The one thing I do really like is the steering wheel, purely because there's a flat bottom. And I know I'm a petrol head and I shouldn't really be focusing on those kind of things, but there's many of us out there who do like small little details like that. And for me, that's a nice little finish. In terms of technology, the infotainment system is not the best out there, but it does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which then supersedes the factory infotainment system and rather mirrors your phone. So it doesn't really matter because you'll be using your phone mirrored on this side. This car does have USB preparation, and as well it does have inductive charging, or what we know as wireless charging, which is also a very handy thing because people like myself always forget the cables. So normally when it comes to these kind of cars, we generally like to favor the middle ground variant. But in this case, I must say this 1.4 turbo is the one to go for. Previously we had a 1.6 litre, and then they replaced that now with the 1.5 litre. So you've got a petrol and a diesel option available in this car. But if you want to spend a little bit more and you can get yourself something like this, the 1.4 turbo, you do get 103 kilowatts and 242 newton meters of torque. But the most desirable thing I would say about this vehicle is its gearbox. The other cars get CVTs, you can also get them in manuals, but specifically for this car, they've given it a double clutch gearbox, which makes the world of a difference when it comes to the way the vehicle reacts on the road and in any other situation as well. For instance, now, if I want to put my foot down, the car simply reacts and engages the gear quite easily, whereas with the CVT, it would feel as if the car's whining and whining and whining. Now, I know in the beginning of the segment, we mentioned that this is a T-Cross competitor, and some of you might be thinking, hold on a second, isn't that where the Hyundai Venue is supposed to play? And you'd be correct, but there's a reason why we're comparing this car to both the T-Cross and the T-Roc, and that's purely because of pricing. So from a pricing perspective, this vehicle tops out, which is the top of the range model, the one we're in currently, the 1.4 turbo, is 484,000 Rand, which is not bad considering all that you get. But on the other hand, the T-Roc starts off at 489. So from a pricing perspective, this vehicle literally falls in between the T-Roc and the T-Cross, because the equivalent T-Cross will cost you 440,000 Rand. So it's literally 40,000 Rand cheaper than this vehicle. But this is a slightly bigger car, so from a practicality perspective and where the segment is going, we need to compare this more to the T-Roc actually. And from that perspective, I must say that I'm quite impressed with what Hyundai have been able to put together with this car. I recently drove the old Creta and there was nothing wrong with that vehicle, but it still felt a little bit outdated. Whereas in this car, specifically in this 1.4 turbo, the car really feels like it's a car from 2020. Overall, you can definitely see why brands like Hyundai and Kia are shooting the lights out in this country. They've really come to the party when it comes to their offering, and a car like this really proves that. And one of the major factors, as we mentioned before, is the pricing. People want something that's still going to be affordable, but they don't want to sacrifice on certain creature comforts. And I don't feel shortchanged in this entire driving experience. In fact, it's nice and refreshing to see a car like this that is not part of the mainstream vehicles do so well. I like these divisive looks. It literally looks like something out of Tron. And I think it's bold for Hyundai to do this, and I think it works, personally. I know I might not be right based on Thomas's look, but...
No, I mean, I don't mind it. You know, I think it's become their new corporate face, especially in the crossovers that they make. The venue, you know, it's kind of edgy. I think it speaks to people out there shopping for these kind of cars.
Yeah.
The old Creta was very white good.
Yeah.
White goods, like a toaster, you know. It was
like a panware kettle.
Yeah, exactly like that. It was like the dull,
Yes.
the dull one in the range, no character.
It's very difficult to actually form a solid segment when it comes to these cars. It's like everything's blending into one.
Yeah, it's weird because there's 3 Hyundai compact crossover SUVs that you can kind of interchange when you're looking in the segment. There's the Kona, there's the Venue, and there's the Creta, and now they even have the same corporate face to a certain degree. So, what do you pick as a consumer? Like, how do you really tell them apart? I mean, we're motoring journalists, we drive the cars, and even we get confused with the pricing.
Struggle,
with
100%.
the pricing and stuff.
And as you said, there's a lot of overlap. you know? So which one do you buy? And I guess it basically comes down to how much space you want.
Yes.
You know, that's going to be a deciding factor.
But another segment that is also suffering from the same thing is the bakkie segment. And that's actually what we're going to talk about next. Still to come here on Ignition GT, Isuzu's D-Max found its way into our basement and we tell you all you need to know. Plus, Kia will be on the offensive this year when they launch their new Sorento. Stay tuned for that.